Welcome to the stories on Echoes of Revenge. Step into a world where love turns dangerous, revenge feels inevitable, and every story drags you deeper into the shadows of desire, betrayal, and the human heart. Let's begin today's story. The Kensington Estate gardens were magnificent. 300 guests in designer gowns and tailored suits, champagne fountains flowing with Dom Pérignon, string quartet playing Vivaldi beneath ancient oak trees. My sister Penelope's wedding to Lord William Ashford was the social event of the London season. And I was seated behind a decorative screen at table 47, hidden from view like an embarrassment. "Charlotte, you understand why this is necessary, don't you?" Penelope had said that morning while getting her makeup done. "William's family is extremely particular about presentation. You're not quite ready for this level of society." Not ready. I was 31 years old, and my sister had decided I wasn't sophisticated enough for her wedding. "The screen is actually quite lovely," Mother added, examining her reflection. "Chinese lacquer, 18th century. Very expensive. You should feel honored to sit near it." Behind it, she meant. Hidden. Out of sight. "What's wrong with how I look?" I'd asked. "Nothing's wrong, darling," Mother said in that tone that meant everything was wrong. "You're just simple. That job of yours hasn't exactly cultivated refinement." My job? I was Deputy Director of Intelligence for MI6, managing covert operations across 14 countries. But my family thought I worked as a low-level government clerk filing paperwork at the Home Office. Because I'd never corrected them. Because I'd wanted to see who they were without the prestige of my actual position. Now I knew. They were people who hid family members behind decorative screens. So I sat at table 47 behind the 18th century Chinese lacquer screen, eating overpriced chicken while the ceremony proceeded without me. I could hear everything, the vows, the applause, Penelope's carefully practiced laugh, but I couldn't be seen. My phone buzzed. A message from Director Morrison. "Situation developing. PM is en route to your location. 7 minutes. Security detail arriving now to secure the perimeter." I typed back. "I'm at a wedding. Director Morrison, we know. The helicopter will land in the East Garden. PM needs immediate briefing on the Damascus situation. You're the only officer cleared for this intel." Me, "Can't this wait 2 hours?" Director Morrison, "No. Russian assets are moving tonight. The PM is personally handling the crisis. He specifically requested you." I glanced around the screen. The reception was in full swing. Speeches were starting. My father stood, raising his glass to toast the happy couple. "To Penelope and William. 2 people who represent the very best of British society. Who understand tradition, refinement, and the importance of maintaining standards." He didn't mention me. His other daughter. The one behind the screen. My phone buzzed again. "Security detail on grounds now. 3 minutes. I stood, smoothing my simple dress. The one Mother had deemed adequate, I suppose, with barely concealed disappointment. Through the screen's lattice, I could see security personnel in dark suits positioning themselves around the garden's perimeter. Then I heard it. The distinctive sound of helicopter rotors. The string quartet faltered. Conversations stopped. Guests looked up as a Royal Air Force helicopter descended onto the east lawn, security lights blazing, downwash scattering carefully arranged flower petals across the manicured grass. "What on earth?" William's father, the Earl of Ashford, stood abruptly. "This is a private event." "Who authorized?" The helicopter landed. The door opened. Prime Minister Harrison stepped out, flanked by security officers and his chief of staff. A protection officer approached my screen. "Ma'am, the Prime Minister is here for you." The screen was moved aside with practiced efficiency. Suddenly I was visible. No longer hidden. Standing as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom walked directly toward table 47. "Charlotte," PM Harrison said, extending his hand. "I apologize for interrupting, but we have a situation that requires your immediate attention. The Damascus embassy has reported Russian military assets moving into position. Your intelligence assessment from this morning was accurate. We need to brief the Security Council within the hour." 300 guests stared in complete silence. "Of course, Prime Minister," I said calmly. "I have the updated intel on my secure device. We can review it in transit." "Excellent. I have the Foreign Secretary and Defense Secretary waiting via secure video link. He glanced at the stunned wedding reception. Again, my apologies for the disruption. National security takes precedence, I'm afraid. He turned to Penelope and William. Congratulations on your marriage. I understand the bride is Charlotte's sister. Penelope made a sound that might have been an attempt at speech. I'm sure she's very proud, the PM continued. Charlotte's work in intelligence has been instrumental in maintaining UK security interests. One of our finest officers. Mother had gone completely white. Father's champagne glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the lawn. The PM's protection officer gestured toward the helicopter. Ma'am, we should move. One moment, I said. I turned to my family, mother, father, Penelope, all frozen in shock. I'll try to make it back for the cake cutting. Though I may be in the Situation Room managing a potential international crisis. We'll see how it goes. I walked toward the helicopter, past tables of guests who'd ignored me all afternoon, past the cousins who hadn't bothered to say hello, past the screen that had hidden me from view. The PM's chief of staff handed me a tablet as we walked. The situation's deteriorating. Russians have moved 3 battalions to the Syrian border. Your assessment predicted this exact scenario. They're testing our response time. Standard protocol. We'll need to coordinate with the Americans and French. I assume the Foreign Secretary is already on it. Waiting for your strategic recommendations. We reached the helicopter. I glanced back once at the reception. Every single person was staring. Penelope looked like she might faint. William's father, the Earl who'd complained about the interruption, was frantically speaking to someone on his phone. Charlotte. Mother's voice, shrill with desperation. Wait. We didn't know. You never said you worked directly with the Prime Minister. You never asked what I actually did. You just assumed I was filing paperwork somewhere. But why didn't you tell us? Penelope had found her voice. We would have seated you at the family table. You could have been in the photos. Would you? Or would you have just used my position to climb higher in society? I looked at the elaborate wedding, the carefully curated guest list, the obsessive attention to status and appearance. I'm seated behind a screen at table 47 because you were embarrassed by what you thought I was. Now you're upset because I'm not what you assumed. That's not my problem, Penelope. That's yours. The PM was already in the helicopter. His protection officer gestured urgently. Ma'am, we need to lift off. I climbed in. The door closed. Through the window, I watched my family standing among the scattered guests, looking up at the helicopter carrying the Prime Minister and the sister they'd hidden behind a screen. We lifted off. London spread below us, the Kensington Estate shrinking to a green patch dotted with tiny figures in formal wear. Your family didn't know about your position? The PM asked, reviewing intelligence reports on his tablet. They thought I was a clerk. I never corrected them because I wanted to see how they'd treat me without the prestige. And they seated you behind a screen. He shook his head. Charlotte, you've managed operations that saved thousands of lives. You've prevented 3 terrorist attacks, negotiated hostage releases, and provided intelligence that shaped our entire Middle East policy. And your family hid you at a wedding. They value appearances over substance. I learned that today. Their loss. He handed me the tablet. The Russian situation. Your thoughts. I spent the helicopter ride to Westminster briefing the Prime Minister on Russian military movements, likely scenarios and recommended UK responses. By the time we landed, I'd outlined a strategy that would later be adopted by the entire Security Council. The crisis was resolved by midnight. The Russians backed down after coordinated pressure from the UK, US and French governments. No shots fired. No casualties. Just careful diplomacy and intelligence-driven strategy. I returned to my flat in Belgravia at 1:30 a.m. My phone had 63 missed calls. Mother, father, Penelope, cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Even William's family. The voicemails were variations on the same theme. Charlotte, we had no idea about your position. We need to talk. The Earl wants to discuss having you to dinner. The Prime Minister landing at my wedding. Everyone's talking about it. Charlotte, this could be so good for the family's social position. Why didn't you tell us you were important? We could have introduced you to so many people. Charlotte, please call back. I deleted them all except one. From Penelope, left at 11 p.m. Charlie, I'm so sorry. Not because you're important, though you clearly are, but because I treated you terribly. You're my sister. I should have wanted you visible at my wedding because you're family, not because of your job title. I was wrong. I'm so wrong. Can we talk? I saved that one. The next morning, the Telegraph ran a front-page photo. The Prime Minister's helicopter landing at the Ashford-Montague wedding with the headline, PM interrupts Society wedding to consult MI6 Deputy Director of Intelligence. The article detailed my career. 14 years in intelligence, numerous commendations, key role in multiple international crises. It mentioned that I was the bride's sister, seated at a distant table during the reception. Social media erupted. The phrase "behind the screen" trended for 3 days. A week later, Penelope came to my flat. No makeup, no designer dress. Just my sister looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. I read the articles, she said. All of them. What you've done, what you've achieved. Charlotte, I'm so ashamed. Of what? Of everything. Hiding you. Caring more about William's family's opinion than about my own sister. Measuring your worth by social standing instead of character. He was crying now. You prevent terrorist attacks, and I was worried you'd embarrass me by not knowing which fork to use. To be fair, I still don't always know which fork to use. But you know how to save lives. How to serve your country. How to be someone who actually matters. She looked at me. Can you forgive me? Can you see me? Really see me? Not the MI6 officer or the government clerk you thought I was. Just me. Your sister. I want to try. If you'll let me. We talked for 3 hours. Really talked for the first time in years. About her marriage to William, about the pressure of social expectations, about how she'd lost herself trying to be who everyone else wanted. The wedding was beautiful, I said finally. Even from behind the screen. Got that screen. I'll never live that down. The Earl called 6 times asking to have me to dinner. William's father is a social climber of the highest order. He's thrilled you work for the PM. Wants to leverage our family connection for political access. Should I go? Only if you want to watch him grovel for an hour. It's actually quite entertaining. I smiled. Maybe I will then. Things changed slowly. Penelope started calling weekly, actually asking about my life. Mother sent a stiff letter acknowledging she'd perhaps misjudged my career. Father tried to explain that he'd always known I was capable of great things. I didn't believe most of it, but I appreciated the effort. 6 months later, the PM awarded me the CMG, Companion of the Order of St. Michael and St. George, for services to foreign intelligence. The ceremony was at Buckingham Palace. Penelope attended. So did my parents. This time I sat in the front row. No screens. No hiding. Just the Deputy Director of Intelligence receiving recognition from her country. With family watching. Finally seeing who I'd always been. The helicopter had landed. And the screen had come down. For good.